Hello and welcome everyone to Real Magic, where real women just like you are creating real change, both in their personal lives and all over the globe. I'm your host, Kathy Forrest, founder of Celestial Forest Institute, and it is my great delight to be here with my dear friend, Kaylin Castell. Welcome, Kaylin.
Yay, thank you. I love being here with you, Kathy. You know that.
I know. This is so fun. So Kaylin is the co-founder of Venus Alchemy and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. She's a Magdalene and Divine Creation High Priestess in the lineage of Nicole Christine. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for nearly 25 years, she enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teaching, both online and in-person events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. And that is the basis for your topic, working with the sky mysteries to create your own magic. So please explain, what do you mean when you say we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us? How do we do that?
Well, it helps to be even interested in what the mysteries are,
Right? Right.
And definitely talking about the sky mysteries, because ancient cultures all over the planet worked with the sky mysteries. They were tracking the planetary cycles, they were tracking the seasons, the moon phases, they were tracking all of this, and they did it in astounding ways. We've got pyramids and petroglyph sites and chambered cairns and temple sites, and just all these different ways that they were working the mysteries. In fact, there's a petroglyph site in Sedona where they would know when the sun lit up certain petroglyphs to do certain dances, like to do certain ceremonies.
Wow.
That's how they kept track of it, and it would be based on how high the sun was and where it was rising and setting and where it would be in the middle of the day and all of that. And it would just light up certain petroglyphs, and it was like, okay, time to do these ceremonies. Like, they were being informed by the mysteries, but they were also informing them by doing these ceremonial intentions, by doing these dances, by doing whatever it was, so that they were aligned with the intent of that time. But they were also they were aligning their intent with that time, but they were also helping take advantage of that time by understanding what the timing was about and then working with it. So so it's a way of doing, it's great magic.
Right.
Magic,
right. So it's kind of like catching the wave. So whatever wave is coming down the pike, if you can catch it and harness it, you can use it to
yeah. And they had that kind of awareness. We are trying to get that back now.
right.
We weren't really raised that way. It's like, a lot of this I kind of knew a little about, but as I got into it, and I was like, oh, look at that. We just had a full moon yesterday. Here's my full moon.
Right.
Right. And it was close to the earth and powerful, and the energy of it. People often will feel the energy of a full moon. More babies are born around a full moon than any other time.
Right.
In fact, 3 of my 4 children were born within minutes or a few hours of a full moon.
Wow. So
stuff really works.
Yeah, it does. So could you give us some, like, what's important to remember about this relationship that we have with the mysteries? Why would we even want to bring all that back?
Because we want to live in the magic. Right? I have to say, my whole life, I've always been fascinated by the idea of magic, and of course, growing up, it was Bewitched, and I Dream Genie, and it was like magic. And I just loved that so much. And then, now we have other ways of tuning in Harry Potter stuff and whatever, the magical world. But one of the things that wasn't really apparent was that we can actually create our own magic.
Right.
And I remember reading, it was Lynn Andrews' book, Medicine Women, back in the late 80s. I was reading that book, and I was like, she had such a magical life. I just declared to you, I said it out loud, because my life was in total destruction at that time. And like, I want to live a magical life.
Right.
And really making that declaration it's like the universe heard me. And then all these magical things started happening. One of them being shortly thereafter, shamanic astrology came into my life.
Right, right. So that just kind of segues me into my biggest question. It's like, I want to hear some examples. How have you used the mysteries and created magic in your own life?
I have so many stories.
Right? So just pick a few.
So I want to start with this one. It's actually somewhat more recent, like about 7 or 8 years ago. I was in a powerful Saturn cycle, and it was Saturn to some personal parts of my chart, and then Saturn return that was starting to happen. And I had been in it for a while, and I was feeling like, I know what Saturn's about. I know how to work with this. I feel like I'm failing miserably, because that's one of the things, we have to face our judgments when we're dealing with Saturn, right? And usually the judgments are about us, our own
Right,
judgments of ourselves,
right.
right? so so I was going on a hike, and I like to call it ceremonial hiking.
Mhm.
So I set an intention as I left on this hike, and I'm like, can you please just send me a sign that I'm on track somehow with this, because I feel like I'm missing what I'm supposed to be doing here. So just please send me a sign, right?
Right.
So it started up, I thought I was going down one trail, and then I found myself getting pulled off to another trail. And I
Mhm.
thought it was going up this, one way, and then I found myself going up this hill. I thought I was going to sit on this one rock, but I found myself sitting on this other rock.
Right.
And I'm just taking it in and going, okay, I'm starting to feel a little more relaxed and calm and so on. And I look down at my feet, and there's a snake skin.
Whoa.
I'm like, and this is a huge mountain. I mean, to
Mhm.
find a snake skin like that was just like beyond the beyond. It was total magical moment. And I was so excited, because the thing we talk about with Saturn in Saturn cycles, it's like a snake shedding its skin,
Right?
right? So
I love it.
because the old skin, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad, it's not better or worse or anything. It didn't do anything wrong, that old skin. It just, the snake got too big for it.
Right?
And
So
so in Saturn cycles, we find oftentimes we've gotten bigger, or we need to make some changes and restructure our reality to
Mhm.
work with where we really are in the moment, so that it really supports us. And
Mhm.
so to me, that was the most powerful sign I could have possibly received
Right?
in that
It's like
moment.
you
Like,
are on the
my
right track.
magic is happening. I was like lit up. And I gathered up that snake skin. I made a rock cairn. I gave gratitude to the earth. I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I went running down the mountain with the snake skin in my pouch, my fanny pack. And I put it on my altar, and I still have it on my altar, because it reminds me of that magical moment. And that, yeah, I got through that. It was like 7 years of Saturn. I was going through, I got through all that, and it's like my life is better than ever.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's one example.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a cool story.
yeah, and then there's other times where I have been in, challenging cycles, and Saturn too can definitely connect with the ancestors. And
Mhm.
so as I was finishing up all this Saturn stuff, one of the things I asked was, could you just give me a sign that I'm, because I was trying to connect with the ancestors, and
Mhm.
be connected more to the wisdom aspect and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And so as I got up that morning, I was like, okay, send me a sign. And I went for my walk. And the first thing I see is a Gila monster. Now, this has happened to me before when I've
So
asked,
what's a Gila monster?
right? Because I live in the Tucson or Arizona Sonoran Desert.
Mhm.
Gila monsters are really leftover dinosaurs. They're pretty big lizards that can be like, this big.
Dang.
They're
Oh,
big lizards, and they're these just the Hopi, I mean not the Hopi, the Navajo see them as the ones that were like, they helped to create the world, or they took all the pieces of the world and put them together or something,
right.
and
Mhm.
like healing energy. And I guess as Gila monsters walk, they shake their front paw, and they're also checking the earth with their tongue.
Wow.
And so they have people in their tribes that are handshakers, that will tune into and know what's the right way to go, and that kind of thing. So there's like high magic that's associated with them. But
Mhm.
here's the other thing. They spend like 97 to 99% of their time underground. So to
Wow.
see a Gila monster is rare.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do come out, they're usually more nocturnal. So to see them in the day is
Right.
rare.
Right.
And so whenever I see one, I'm like, okay, high magic is present.
Right.
Like, whoa, this is so cool. And
And so this time your intention was around your
connecting with the ancestors, like getting a message from the ancestors, like I'm on the right track with what I'm doing here.
right.
And Gila monsters are one of the most ancient creatures on the planet. Like,
I love it.
what's that?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the messages might come through dreams. So interesting, here's another reptilian story. The reptilians. I had been asking about, you know, how I'm connecting with these mysteries, still in my Saturn cycle. So this is, you know, these are just things that are kind of stacking up on each other. I
Mhm.
had this dream that I was holding a snake shaped staff, like a, you know, like a
Mhm.
staff, like a
A walking stick.
what?
A walking stick.
Like a walking stick, or like a you know, a wizard staff kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, but I'm holding it up and
Mhm.
I'm chanting these words. I have no idea. It's like, sounds like gobbledygook to me, but I'm chanting them like I know them.
Right. Right.
And the staff comes alive as a snake in my hands. And then the snake, like, and I'm like, whoa, it's a rattlesnake. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
And it brings its head around to my face and it puts one little drop of venom in my cheek. And my body's just electrified, and that woke me up. And I
Mhm.
was like, and I woke up and I was chanting, I am the serpent bear, I am the serpent bear, I am the serpent bear.
Oh my goodness, Kaylin. Oh
I
my gosh. Did you look up what that meant?
Yes, well, I already knew because I have planets. My moon is with a star that's connected to the constellation Ophiuchus, who is the serpent bearer. So Ophiuchus is holding the snake in his hands,
Mm-hmm.
or her hands, well, I like to think, you know, because the snake priestesses, right? The oracular priestesses, they worked with the snake medicine.
Right.
And so it wasn't just him, it could have been a her, depending on how far back you go.
Right.
So, uh, and Ophiuchus is a form of Asclepius, who's, you know, credited with like healing, and the caduceus for the healing, you know, the DNA, the snakes going up the staff.
Mhm.
And so one of the story about Asclepius is that he literally was asked to come and heal a king's dead son.
Wow.
And he's like, well, even if I could, and I can't, you know, that's not, I can't, I don't know how to do that. He said, even if I could, your son might still have the same health issues he had that caused him to die. And the
Right.
king's like, if you won't do this for me, you're going to jail. And he throws him in the dungeon. and so he's Asclepius is like, oh, that's so just not fair. Like, I'm not lying, I'm not doing this, I just don't know how to do this. Well,
Right.
so the snake comes into his room, like his dungeon room,
Mhm.
and he has a staff and he beats the snake with is just so much anger, he just beats the snake
Mhm.
dead. And then he feels really bad, like, oh, you snake, you didn't deserve that.
Right.
Right, I'm mad not at you, I'm mad at somebody else, I shouldn't have
Right.
taken this out on you. And
Mhm.
he's like, you know, he's in a place of deep grief and kind of sobbing for the snake that he just killed because he was so
Right.
angry.
Right.
And another snake comes into the room, and or into the dungeon cell, whatever, you know, you call it,
Right. Yeah.
and has an herb in its mouth that she or he, you know, it's like the mate of the other snake, of the
Mhm.
dead snake, and spreads it over his body, and the snake comes back to life, and they both leave, and they
Oh
leave
wow.
some of the herb behind. And
Mhm.
so Asclepius learns how to bring the dead back to life. Of course, he
Wow.
gets pulled up with that later, but
Right.
another part of the story. But anyway, but he was taught by the serpent, by the
Mhm.
snake. And so I felt like that dream was
Mhm.
like, oh,
Right. That's huge.
right, big. So high magic, and I'm literally, I was like lit on fire for days afterwards.
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things. It's like paying attention to our dreams. How are the messages and the magic showing up for us? Paying attention to things that we see out in nature. You know, certain things happen where people or events or synchronicities come together, high magic, and when we are paying attention and asking for them and knowing what the cycles are, it's a full moon, you know, what are we asking for, you know,
Right.
what's showing up. So I often recommend that people set an intention, have an intention, say, you know, if it's a full moon, or today, as we're doing this recording, Pluto has just going retrograde.
Oh, hey, whoa.
Like, and it's in a still point. It's in that place between. It's not moving forward. It's not moving backward. It's just in that between place. And that's a place of great alchemy and magic as well. So having an intention around that.
So what kind of intention would you set around that?
Yeah.
Especially for people that know nothing about astrology.
Right. So Pluto's job is to always empower us. But first, we must always face the things that disempower us that are in the way of that empowerment.
Gotcha.
So it's not always easy and it's not always fun.
Right.
There's times it's like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want that. You know, you might feel that way. You might have a lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of challenges when Pluto is powerfully present. But when we can let go of the things that are in the way of us being our true self, it's like the phoenix rising. You know, so the phoenix dives into the ashes, goes through a death process, and rises up in its glorious self.
Right.
That's really what Pluto's about. So the question might be, what's in the way of me being my true self right now? And how can I let it go and surrender to it?
Is
and
there
then pay attention to whatever signs and messages come through.
Yeah. So is there a difference between when Pluto is just floating along doing its Pluto thing, or when it stands still and goes, what happens when Pluto goes retrograde?
So it's at a standstill point, meaning, you know, T.S. Eliot wrote a beautiful poem called The Still Point. And that's really where Pluto is right now, is in the still point. It's not, it's neither from nor toward, it's neither here nor there. It's not anywhere. It's not anything. It's like in a still point of all possibilities, like all, you know, all the magic that you could possibly access. It's like it happens in those still points of any planetary station, whether it's retrograde or direct.
Right.
And so we can work with that as well. And sometimes people will be also in a personal, say, Pluto cycle. So if someone happens to have, say, 27 degrees, between 24 and 27 degrees of Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, Libra, they're in a personal Pluto cycle right now. And this is a magical moment or a powerful time. Now, sometimes we're in resistance.
Right.
I might have done that a few times myself. I might still go into resistance.
Right.
But ideally, when we can just allow and accept wherever it is that we are, and just allow for that and trust that there will be magic that comes as a result of being able to allow and accept.
Yeah.
And that we be empowered, and that it is designed to help us get to where we're going. We might have to let go of some things. Some ways of being might need to die. Some belief systems might need to die. Some limited awarenesses.
Right. Right.
Limited perspectives might need to die, right? Oftentimes people will experience literally people dying around them. Occasionally somebody might die in a Pluto cycle, but I usually tell people they don't, you might want to die, but you usually don't get to.
I love it. So I have a question that's not on the script.
Right.
So this whole thing is designed to help people out there that may be getting the nudge. It's time to do what you came here to do. It's time. And you said earlier in our conversation, that was about the time that I found shamanic astrology. So everybody, when they see you now, you know, it's like, whoa, I want to be just like Kaylin, right? But back then, can you give us a little bit of the backstory? Like, how did it happen for you? How did, you know, shamanic astrology just dropped out of the sky, landed in your lap?
Yeah,
What
actually, it kind of did.
what happened?
All right, so just a little bit of backstory is that at the time, I was the mother of 3 children
Mhm.
and pregnant unexpectedly with a 4th, right? So, I thought I was done, but here was another one coming, and I was also in a Pluto cycle, so sometimes events beyond your control. And literally, one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though I wasn't so sure when I first met
Right? Right.
within 3 weeks of his birth, the
Mhm.
youngest one, I met Daniel Jamario because he'd come to Tucson. He
Mhm.
called me up on the phone. I don't know this person, but he was friends with my best friend from college. And
Mhm.
she told him when he got to Tucson to call me and invite me to come to his talk. Literally, the universe called me up and said, "Hey, you want to come to this talk?" And I was like, I thought astrology was interesting, but I had always thought it was kind of complicated and I wasn't really sure I resonated with it.
Sure.
And but
Yes.
I'm like, and he said, "You don't have to know anything about astrology if you just come." So I went, and literally, this is 2 weeks before I'm about to have my youngest child.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
or 2 weeks from, yeah, I think it was about 2 weeks from my due date, and then he was born like a week, 3 weeks later.
Mhm.
So I was really pregnant.
Yeah.
Plus, I was just newly married, and a whole other long story. And I had to ask my husband if he'd be willing to watch my 3 kids from my first marriage, who were 5. My twins were 5, and my oldest was 7. He was like, "Go, you need to go, go." He
Oh,
supported me.
wow.
Go. Yeah, and so I went, and I literally was like hearing what was being said and knowing, like it was waking something up inside of me. Like, this, I need to know. I have to know this. And I wasn't thinking, oh, be an astrologer.
Right? Right.
I wasn't thinking any of that. I'm like, I'm about to be a mom again of a newborn. So I've got
Right.
twins that are 5 and a 7-year-old. I'm busy. I
Mhm.
wasn't thinking about that at all. So, but I just knew I needed to know it. And so it just like, and then magical events and synchronistic events kept happening
Mhm.
to make sure that I learned this information.
Mhm.
And and yeah, it was life changing. It was like, when you just follow what the universe is presenting to you, you get a phone call, somebody invites you to something, and you're like, "Huh, that sounds interesting. Guess I'll go."
Right?
It becomes your life,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to hear. It's like those are I mean, to me, that's the real magic.
Yeah.
When the universe knocks on your door and you listen and you say, "Huh, okay." And then pew, pew, and it just keeps happening. So if
Yeah.
you
It's a momentum of its own.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And really and truly, and I know you and I know your personality, so I can see you just saying yes, saying yes, saying yes. Was there ever times where you went, no, it's like, um, I can't, I can't do that. I don't have time. This isn't for me.
Because it was right before all this happened that I had said I wanted to live a magical life. And I felt that there was magic connected to this. It's the
Mhm.
same thing as when I decided to do, well, I heard somebody say they were doing this priestess process.
Right.
And I literally knew nothing about it. And I said, "Priestess, I want to do that." I didn't know anything about it. I just knew in that moment I wanted to do it. And it was another life-changing kind of
Right.
thing.
Mhm.
And so this woman said to me, "Well, I don't know if there's going to be any more circles or not, but I'll let the person know that you're interested."
Mhm.
Nicole Christine.
Right.
I'll let her know you're interested. And got a call like a couple weeks later,
Mhm.
and she had us come to see what it was all about. And she said, "I want you to sleep on it for 3 nights." And I told her before I left, I'm like, "I do not have to sleep on this for 3 nights. My answer will be the same 3 nights from now as it is right now. I'm doing this."
I love it. I love it.
I
So
still
what
didn't really understand exactly what it was, but I was doing it.
right. And still, could we explain what it is? Probably not, but we still do it, right?
Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
how would you tell people if they want to have some of what you got if they want to like really step into their magic and start to work with it, what are some things they can do?
So if we can, oh, the other thing about we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us, it's also connected to as above, so below, as below, so above. So everything that we're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing is helping to inform the mysteries. It's like an intention, whether we're aware of it or not.
Mhm. Like when you
And
said, I
we,
want my life to be more magical, right?
right, exactly. Yeah. And I have no idea when exactly I made that statement. So I can't even look up like what might have been going on astrologically. I
Mhm,
just have sort of a general sense of,
mhm,
a few months where that might have been, because I
mhm.
wasn't doing that stuff then. Right.
Right.
But you set an intention, doesn't matter. You're informing the universe. You're telling the universe what you want.
Mhm.
And,
So then it
and
behooves
so
us to pay attention to our thoughts because
it does.
we're always informing.
We're always informing. We're always informing, but we can step up with how we inform when we do like ceremonial intentions, like when we work with a full moon or a new moon or a cross quarter point, or which we're coming up on, right? This whole thing is going to air over the Beltane cross quarter, a very magical between time between a
Mhm.
equinox and a solstice, right?
Right.
High magic happens in Beltane time too, and or the equinoxes and solstices.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so when we're tuned to that, and there's more things we can also tune to, we can always bring more in if we want, but even
Right.
just being tuned to that, new moons, full moons, so, seasonal points, that kind of thing. And we set intention and we work with it. And then I always like to, after I'm finished with my ceremony, and sometimes they're simply just making a statement to the universe or going out and looking at the full moon and making a statement. Like you don't have to do a lot. You
Mhm.
can, because sometimes it helps focus your intention, and especially if you have a lot of doubt, it might be helpful
Right. Right.
to do that. But I've been doing this long enough, I'm just like, yeah, I just go out and then I ask for signs
Mhm.
to show up, right? So
Right.
let me know I'm on the right track. Let me know, universe, I want to know that you heard what I am saying and that you're working on it. Let me tell another quick story. When I
Yeah.
was um, at the end of my second marriage, and I didn't know that was the case.
Right.
But I had a priestess sister who was in a Pluto cycle, and she was really having a hard time. And I said, I would like to wave my magic wand and make it all better for you, but I know I can't, but I can do ceremony with you. So we went to this petroglyph site and did this ceremony. And there was a sandy wash there, and we decided to draw our charts on the ground and then stand at the center of our chart and make our intentions.
Very
And it
cool.
so happened that the nodes, and the nodes are constantly moving, right? And they change signs every 19 months or so, at
Mhm.
18 and a half months, whatever it is. And they happen to be exact on my ascendant descendant at the time. And I
Wow.
was already starting to see some fracturing in my relationship. And so I was thinking, oh, well, I'll just call in, that we can heal it, fix it, make it better.
Right. Right.
Sometimes we think we know what we want.
Right.
And
The
the universe
universe.
has a bigger idea. So
Mhm.
I stood at the center of that, and I just called in somebody who would love me in the ways I wanted to be loved, who would communicate with me in the ways I wanted to be communicated with, who would celebrate me in the ways I wanted to be celebrated, who would meet me in the ways I wanted to be met, and who would love me for who I am and not who they wanted me to be.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was, it was powerful. And
Wow.
that and I thought that it would be the husband I was married to at the time. Like, he was starting to get some help and starting to, so I thought, well, maybe this will help push that along.
Right.
It took a couple years,
Mhm.
but eventually that marriage ended because he said to me, I want to live a normal life. And what I heard was, I want to live a muggle life.
Right.
And I was like, I want to live a magical life.
Exactly.
So we're done. I mean, he asked me, he was asking for divorce because he said, I just want to live a normal life. And I'm like, okay, I didn't say I want to live a magical life. I thought it in my mind. I am living a magical life. Magic is all around me all the time, and I am not settling for less.
Right. Right.
So within a year of that, I met my current husband, who I call my BHE, best husband ever,
Mhm.
who meets me in all those places, who loves me for in all those ways, who is supportive and celebrates me in all those ways every day. And I get to do that for him. And so it worked.
Yes, it way did.
It took a little time. It did. And I will say sometimes when it's a bigger thing and you've got a lot in the way of
Mhm.
that intention, and I had a lot in the way of that intention, it
Right.
took some time to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the Quarter Cross. This is going to air next week and Beltane is coming up. What would be intentions that people would want to set around that time?
So to me, Beltane, it's the time when the earth is growing and green and beautiful, and there's the greatest amount of possibility of experiencing pleasure and connection. Of course, we live in a little bit of a crazy world right now, but maybe we're getting chances to have more connection with people.
Mhm. Right?
Right. Intimacy, connection, intimacy with the earth, intimacy with each other, beauty, all of that. So celebrating beauty at
Mhm.
Beltane, and also being.
Mhm.
Beltane is be L-tane.
Right?
But
Right?
the word be is in it, right? So
Right? Yeah.
be, how to be yourself, how, so you might, and I literally have a story, and I will share this in the
Mhm.
free offer that I have, that they can get this article about be yourself, which is a Beltane message I got
Mhm.
back in 21 years ago.
Right?
And joyfully be yourself was the addition to that came a little later. Anyway, so to set intentions like that, like I think connecting to abundance, and it's not just, I call it loving abundance. It's not just money, because a lot of times people focus on that, and I think that's too narrow of a
Mhm.
thing. Not that that's a bit wrong or good or bad or anything,
Mhm.
but we want to have abundance of love, of joy, of pleasure, of fun, of magic,
Yeah.
and
All the good stuff.
all that good stuff. So this is the time when the earth is very abundant. And
Mhm.
so really tuning into that, loving abundance and being ourselves and being the magic and being the beauty of who we really are,
Mhm.
and celebrating the earth and her beauty.
Mhm.
That's such a great thing to do at Beltane,
Mhm.
and allow that, and then just allow it to come to you. And also just a reminder, anything that is in the way, whether those are limiting beliefs, negative beliefs, whatever it might be that's in the way, will come up to get cleared.
Mhm.
That's sometimes the hard part.
Right? Right? So just don't be afraid of it. Just clear it.
Yeah, it's like, good, I've got the opportunity to clear it. How cool is that?
Right? Right? It's
So,
working.
yeah. Although it doesn't always feel that way when it's
Right. Right.
when we're in
But
a
on the
hard.
other side of the release is what you asked for,
Yeah,
just like in your example with the husbands.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I had, when he asked for the divorce, I was in huge grief. We'd had a really strong connection, and
mhm,
he was a great dad to my first three children and the one we had together.
mhm,
And so, just, and it was like, so I had to grieve that, but at the same time, I had huge relief. So I was
mhm.
like, this is the first time I've ever experienced this.
Right? Right?
Just crying and crying and crying. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank goodness.
I
Thank you,
love
thank you, thank you for freeing me from the situation, because it was never going to change. And
right.
he was the one that asked for it. And I was in a plutocycle, in a standstill, not,
Mhm,
in that still point where I
mhm,
couldn't move forward or back until he asked for that, because I didn't want to abandon him in
mhm.
his, because he had mental health issues. I didn't
Yeah.
want to just like say, we're done now. But
Right.
when he asked for it, I'm like, okay, goodbye. We'll see.
Right. 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 And then
And
you got the magical person that you asked for. That's just beautiful.
yeah,
So, Kaylin, this has been delightful. And it's like if anybody can shine a light on magic, it's you. So I really appreciate you coming in and you're tell us a little bit about your free gift.
so I put together just, and
Mhm,
it's just all these different things about magic and articles, and some of the things I talked about, you can read about more of them and that kind of thing.
mhm,
And then some audio,
mhm.
on audios on some of the magic and stuff.
Right.
So Yeah. They can.
And you still do readings. If people want to get a reading from you, they can just connect with you on your website, right?
Yep, they can. Absolutely.
Perfect. This has
Beautiful.
been so much fun. Thank you so much for sharing all your stories. They were just
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you, Kathy. It's such a delight. And I hope everybody gets to have the experience of high magic and lots of fun.
Yeah.